Hey there, welcome into the HUBCast. It's Tuesday, September 27th. I'm Adam Alexander here with my good friends Max Harnett and Russell Wenrich, and we are 2 races into the chase in 2016. I was entertained, especially with those late race cautions at New Hampshire on Sunday. What'd you guys think? What was your evaluation?
Those are my favorite kind of races. We go nice and quick through the middle part of the race, and we get down to the end, we build the drama back up, and we go green flag racing at the end of the race and let the drama unfold. I loved how it unfolded.
Yeah, I don't think, when you look at the first half of the race versus the second half of the race, you couldn't tell what was going to happen. Like
No.
it was all up in the air.
And there was a lot of shuffling at the end. When we leave Dover, I think there could be some teams that look back at the last 30 or 40 laps at New Hampshire and how the cautions fell and how teams elected to play strategy to pit or not pit, whatever the case may be. But there were a handful of positions gained or lost by a few teams that could very well be the difference in them moving on this weekend or them being done and their championship hopes, in fact, being over.
Jamie McMurray to me is the one that jumps out. It's just was in good shape all race, faded late with a pit stop and never could recover. And that absolutely, I think, killed his chances of moving on.
Joey Logano was, I think average running position was like 19th, 18th, 19th, finished 11th. With that, he took the waiver round at the end?
He got the free pass.
Yep. He got the free pass at the end and finished 11th.
He actually took the waiver round at one point earlier in the race, but it cycled through, so he went back a lap down when he had to make his pit stop, did get the free pass on one of those late cautions, and as you said, every time I looked at the board, Joey Logano was 21st.
Yeah.
I mean, every time I looked up, he was running 21st, and a good portion of the day a lap down, but they got that caution late, finished 11th, and those 10 points, and even if you just think the 7 points, I think, as you said, his average running position was like 18.3. He finishes 11th. Those 7 points are big, not just because we know how tight it can be, but think about how much more comfortable you feel and how much less pressure you're under if your advantage over the cut is north of 20 points. Big difference maker.
It's huge.
Kevin Harvick wins, and things did not go great for the 4 team at Chicago. They got trapped a lap down. Unlike Joey Logano on Sunday at New Hampshire, they could never get it back. But Kevin fought and fought and fought throughout the day after starting 19th at New Hampshire. And on that last restart, he jumps out in front of Kenseth, leads only 6 laps, but gets the win, and now he is moving on. Martin Truex Jr. had another great day, led 141 laps. They have been so good in these first 2 chase races, and Martin is locked in. So 2 races in, going to our first elimination race at Dover on Sunday. Who's been more impressive? 78 of Martin Truex Jr., the 4 of Kevin Harvick. Where do you guys lean on this one?
I don't think it's really close. I think Truex is far more impressive. He had maybe the best car at New Hampshire. He gambled with that 2-tire stop, and they gambled because they already had a win. But had he put 4 tires on it, there's no reason to think he wouldn't have just gone back to the front and led the rest of the laps of the race anyways.
Russell?
Yeah, so if they wouldn't have had 4 cautions at the end, we wouldn't even mention Kevin Harvick's name maybe here.
Yeah.
So I don't even think it's close. Like, his average running position in the first 2 races is 5th. He's led...
Truex you're talking about.
Yeah. He's led 165 more laps than Harvick in these first 2 races.
And I'll say this too. My championship favorite and pick was Martin Truex Jr.
Yeah.
I will say this, though. You want to put that 4 car away. You don't want them to hang around because history suggests if you have not put the checkered flag out at an elimination race, they are not done. They are going to fight tooth and nail to move on round by round, and they are going to be a player if they get to Homestead. We saw it 2 years ago when he gets the walk-off win at Phoenix and goes to Homestead and wins it. We saw it last year when they were on the mat and gasping for air, and they go to Dover and dominate that race to move on. He had to play the games late at Talladega to stay alive in that elimination race and move on, survive and advance. And so while I do agree with you guys that Truex has been more impressive through 2 more races and he continues to be my championship favorite, I just think when you look at history and what that 4 car has done, they are so dangerous when it comes to this time of year, and it's hard for me to look the other way on those past experiences.
The thing that is scary about the 4 is I don't think we realize how fast they are. They haven't been qualifying very well lately. They've been starting deep quite often. If they can figure out the qualifying stuff, if they start 3rd, 4th, even on the front row, I think he leads way more laps than we've seen him lead lately. And I think they could really turn it up at the end of the season.
And I think your point is made if you rewind to Chicago, because they had those unapproved body modifications, so they start at the rear. And what were we, 25 laps in, and they were already inside the top 10 at Chicago, a track that it's not easy to pass. An arrow is huge. To move that quickly through the field against that kind of competition, if they had started where they were scheduled, which was 4th or 3rd at Chicago for Kevin, top 5.
Yeah, it was right in front. It was the row in front of Truex.
He probably would have been a far bigger player and led a lot more laps at Chicago than what he had, and may very well have won the race. So. I think they do have some speed, and I've said all along, if there's someone outside the Toyota camp that can challenge the Toyotas, it for me is going to be that 4-car Kevin Harvick.
All 3 of his wins this year have come from when he started 18th or worse.
It's incredible.
So it's not.
It's kind of back to the old days for him.
Yeah. So it's really not hurting him, I wouldn't say.
No, but I think it doesn't illustrate how fast they are, because we focus so much on the guys leading laps that. They just haven't got, it just takes them a while to get up there, so they don't lead as many laps as these other guys. I'm saying the speed is hidden because of how deep they start.
But see, I don't think it's hidden because of how quickly we've seen him come through the field.
Absolutely.
So you could see how much better he is by everybody he passes versus Truex is just out. He's got a good track position, good pit stalls, so he just goes out there and leads because Harvick's coming through the field.
I would say this, though. Here's what scares me about not qualifying well this time of year. Is that we have reached a stage, and I said this on Race Hub Monday, where margin for error is very, very slim. Now, you can have some hiccups if you're an elite team, a pit road speeding penalty, a tire getting away. I mean, we saw it with Harvick last year. I mean, they had problems in the first 2 races and still bounced back to win at Dover. I think if you're an elite team, you can stub your toe in round 1, still find a way to advance. But when we go from 12 to 8, you can't fake that. You have got to be on your game. And I just think the margin for error is so small. And with that, if I'm a Kevin Harvick fan or I'm the 4 team, I would feel a lot more comfortable if I were qualifying up front. Because rewind to Chicago, and I know that wasn't a qualifying thing. That was an unapproved adjustment, if you will, by NASCAR that sent them to the rear. But the kind of thing that happened to them at Chicago, that can happen anywhere.
Yeah.
And if that happens at Kansas in the round 2, they might not be able to overcome finishing 20th in the second round. So I think that's where I would feel a lot better if week in, week out, you're qualifying into that 3rd round where you know you're going to start among the top dozen and immediately you establish some track position.
See, I'd only be worried about him if that happened at Phoenix for him, because I think they have enough speed where getting to the round of 8 is not going to be a big problem to them. But out of that round of 8, anything can happen in that round.
Oh yeah, you get to the round of 8, and I've said it forever. To me, that's where it begins. I mean, no offense to the guys that are going to be eliminated in the round of 16 or the round of 12, but when we get down to the 8, now you know we are absolutely dealing with the elite of the elite, and it's really anybody's game when you want to go out and win that championship. And I think a great collection of tracks in the round of 8 with a short track at Martinsville. You talked about the flat mile in Phoenix and the staple of the schedule in the playoffs, and that being 1.5 miles at Texas Motor Speedway. So we all agree, 2 winners in the first 2 races, both chase drivers, Kevin Harvick, who's been a perennial power when it comes to this format, and Martin Truex Jr., but we think Martin Truex Jr. has been the most impressive. We did our brackets a couple of weeks ago, and we weren't, you still got yours?
They're up
somewhere?
here.
Oh, okay. And we weren't kind to some teams that really had probably earned the rank that we gave them when we started talking about who's got the best opportunity to advance in the chase. I think, though, there have been some teams that turned my head that if I had to redo my bracket, I'd have them moving on where maybe I eliminated them. So for you guys, who did you not trust going into the chase that after 2 races you now say, I kind of trust them and believe in what they're doing? Where do you guys go? Give me one team.
I think we all made a huge mistake in not advancing Jimmie Johnson.
Absolutely.
And looking back on it, you go, what the heck were we thinking? It's Jimmie Johnson, it's Chad Knaus. Of course they were going to move out of the round of 16. And so not advancing them was definitely a huge mistake on our part.
So yours is Jimmie Johnson,
Sure.
you say?
Yeah, I have to agree with them. Like, you look at their performance before the chase and during the chase, it's just, overall, it's just amazing. Like, they've led more laps at Chicago than they did all season. Their pit crew now is like the best pit crew on a 4-tire stop in the chase.
You told me and Max before we came in here today that first 2 races in the chase, 4-tire pit stops, they've been the best of anybody.
Mm-hmm.
Is that chase teams or across the board?
No, across the board.
Across the board, all 40 teams. They certainly have done a nice job, and you wouldn't have believed it if you went back and looked at the regular season finale and some of the fumbles that they had at Richmond. They didn't appear to be playoff ready, and I think what makes them more scarier than ever is the fact that not only are they executing, you talked about the numbers on pit road, they've got speed that we really didn't see throughout the regular season. You guys both say Jimmie Johnson. I'm going to say his teammate Chase Elliott, just to be different. I agree with you on Jimmie. I trust Jimmie far more now in that 48 team than I did going into the chase. But Chase Elliott had a little bit of a midseason slump.
Yeah.
I mean, I rewind to Pocono in Michigan in June. At that point, I'm drinking the Kool-Aid. I'm saying this guy's not going to be our rookie of the year. He might very well be our champion. He's going to go in playing with house money, and he just seems to handle everything that's thrown at him, and he might have a couple of wins by the time we get to the chase. Those were my thoughts in the middle part of June. And then it was like they had a couple weeks where they had bad luck, and then they just kind of couldn't get out of their own way. And then you start thinking, gosh, I don't even know if they've got speed anymore. But it appears to be back to me.
Yeah.
And I hate that things went the way they did for them on Sunday, because they got the raw end of the deal. While guys like Kurt Busch, Jimmie Johnson, I would put Brad Keselowski in that category. We talked about Joey Logano. Guys that utilize those late cautions to come and get tires at the right time and finish maybe better than where they deserved.
Mm-hmm. Sure.
Chase Elliott stayed out, got cycled to the back, and ended up finishing 16th, and his average running position was 5.3 or something like that. They didn't get what they deserved, but I think, again, he showed that he's capable, and he's the one that really has turned my head that, quite honestly, going in, I didn't know what they'd be able to do.
It is tough coming into the chase. The tracks that we have, some of the road courses, the Poconos in Michigan, they're not really like anything that we see in the chase, and so it's tough to get a good measurement of where guys are with their program, and I think it happens to us every year. We get into the chase and we have these expectations, and then we go, well, we were totally wrong. It's just because guys are ready for the chase, whether it's those 1.5 miles or specific to Loudon, a place like Dover. Guys can turn it back on when it comes time to race in the chase. 48 teams done it for years.
If you guys were placing a bet, the 4 guys on the outside going to this first elimination race, Jamie McMurray, Austin Dillon, who are both 5 behind, Tony Stewart's 11 out, and then Chris Buescher, which is in a must-win situation for sure. Are those the 4 that you think will go home, or do you think we'll have any movement at the cut? How would you guys bet this thing if you had to gamble it in Vegas?
Ooh, that's tough. Depends what odds I'm getting. I tend to think if I couldn't pick one of those guys that would jump up and advance, but history tells me that something's going to happen, and that either one of the guys above the cut's going to have problems and move down, or one of those guys below are going to have a great day. I think someone's going to jump up, but I wouldn't put money on any 4 of them because I have no idea.
What do you think, Russell?
Yeah, I think McMurray can make it, but it's going to take some help, basically. Mm-hmm. But look at Dover. We have a lot of weird things happen at Dover.
Yes.
You look at that restart with like 50 to go in May, like where you had 15 cars involved in a wreck.
That's where Jimmie Johnson had the transmission issue,
Yeah.
Truex nowhere to go, and basically the big one at Dover.
Yeah, and if something like that happens, then anything could happen, right?
Yeah.
And you know what? I thought, actually, after Chicago, I looked at the standings after Chicago, and I thought the 4 guys that are out now would be the 4 guys that would go home.
Yeah.
Now, they weren't the 4 guys out then, but those are the guys that I said would end up being the 4 outside, which makes me nervous, because while my conventional wisdom says the 12 that are in will be the 12, and I look at the guy that's flirting with that cut line more than anybody, and Kyle Larson, he's +5. And I think about what he did at Dover in the spring, which breathes some confidence in me to about the 42 moving on. But I'm like you guys. I just have a hard time believing we go to Dover and the race just runs its course and everybody comes out like they are. It just doesn't normally go that way in these elimination races.
I have a really good feeling about Larson, though. His worst finish there is 11th. Like, this is his best track of all tracks. So I think he's been good at avoiding problems there. So I don't, you look at the other guys above him, like Kurt Busch is just above him.
+15.
He can have issues. 15 is not a lot.
No, it's not.
There. So
I mean, we saw it last year. Jimmie Johnson went into that Dover race in the first round.
+27.
Yeah, and fell out.
Now, they had a part failure.
And that's right.
But
at Dover, that's a place where it can happen. I mean, the Ganassi cars have had issues with parts failures at Dover in the past. I mean, it's not unreasonable to think someone gets caught up in something.
And you have a flat tire there, you're not just looking at losing a lap. You're looking at losing 10, 15 laps because you're going to hit the wall hard.
I was going to say, you lose a tire, you're going straight out into that outside wall. The other thing I'll say, we're having this conversation, Tony Stewart's name has not come up once. And you talked about Jimmie Johnson, his advantage over the cut a year ago when we went to Dover.
Yep.
Kevin Harvick, conversely, was -23.
Yep.
Went there in a must-win and delivered in dominating fashion. Of those 4 guys behind the cut, Jamie McMurray, Austin Dillon, Tony Stewart, Chris Buescher, most likely to deliver the walk-off this weekend. Any of those guys... And I'm not sure that you need a walk-off if you're Austin or Jamie. I mean, if you run really good, you're probably going to have a chance to point in.
Sure.
But if you had one of those guys who would be the most likely to go have a Kevin Harvick moment, a guy that's got more walk-offs than anybody in this format.
Stewart has 3 wins there, so you'd have to lean that way. And he basically needs to win to advance at this
I think
point.
so, too.
Because he's not only, 15 back?
He's 11 back.
11 back, but
he's got to leap basically 3 people.
Yeah.
I mean.
Yeah.
Yeah, I tend to lean towards Stewart just because I think that organization has the ability to bring a car that can compete on speed. I mean, Kevin Harvick, his teammate, clearly shows, and Kurt Busch has shown this year, those guys can run with the best of them. They can run with the Toyotas. And so I think just in terms of equipment and the ability to get done, I lean towards Stewart.
I've looked at this, and I think there are some teams in the first couple of races that have shown us they don't have the speed to compete at the level that they would like. And the group that comes to mind right off the top is Team Penske. I think the 2 and the 22 both have done a good job of managing these first 2 races.
Yeah.
Brad Keselowski's finished in the top 5 both at Chicago and New Hampshire. Logano, we talked earlier, didn't have the success he would have liked at New Hampshire on Sunday, but was much better at Chicago, at least when you looked at the finish. But neither one of those teams have that elite speed. So if you don't have elite speed this time of year, what do you want? You want a crew chief that can put a strategy in play that's going to get you track position at the right time? Do you want a pit crew that may gain you a handful of spots on a key stop late in the race to get you the track position that helps you get a good finish? Or do you just want a driver that can let it all hang out on a restart and go out and when the money's on the line, get after it and get you where you need to go? Where do you guys lean on this?
Go ahead.
I want all 3. So I want the crew chief to make the
He's
right
greedy,
call.
isn't he?
I want a good fast pit stop, and then I want to be really good on restarts if I don't have a good car.
You want a fast car, too?
No,
Throw it in there.
we said he don't have a fast car. So, but don't you agree? Like, you need all of them for it to work if you don't have a fast car.
Yeah, I would say they definitely can all come together and aid. When you don't have speed, you definitely need to make it up somewhere.
So if you want to be good on restarts, you don't want to be good on restarts from the 8th row. You want to be good on restarts from the 2nd row or from the 1st row.
And the easiest place to pass certainly is pit road.
Pit road.
What do you think,
I
Max?
lean towards crew chief. I think a crew chief can turn around a really bad day into a really good day. I mean, how many times this year have we talked about strategy playing out for drivers? Like, Chris Buescher got a win. And I think you can argue that they clearly don't have the speed of other teams. All I'm saying is I think there was no way Chris Buescher was going to win that race with a fast pit stop. But he can win a race with a good pit call. And that's what happened with the 34 team.
Well, and the elements played into that too.
Absolutely.
But here's who I lean to, and this is kind of what was on my mind when I brought up this conversation, and I mentioned the guys from Team Penske. But I look at Paul Wolfe and Brad Keselowski. They have never been to the championship 4. in the 2 years of this format. Been to the Final 8 both times, made it to that round of 8, but have never been able to get to Homestead. And I look at how they've kind of nickel and dime this thing at Chicago and New Hampshire. They didn't have the speed to be in the top 5. I'm sorry they didn't. I like Brad, I like Paul, but they just didn't have that speed. But they played the games the right way. At one point, he stayed out on a cycle of green flag pit stops to lead a lap to gain a point. I mean, they're doing all the things they need to do to put themselves in position to be successful, despite the fact that, man for man, the speed's not there in those race cars. It's not. And so I probably would lean number 1 on my list would be crew chief, that can manage a race in a way that puts me in position to be successful despite the fact that I don't have the speed in a race car.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I mean, it's great to have a driver that's fast, but when the car's not cooperating, sometimes it doesn't matter how good that driver is, there's nothing he can do to hold off guys coming from behind him. And I don't think, and to that point, even a good pit stop, you win 2 spots on pit road, if you don't have the car, you're going to lose those pretty quickly. I think the crew chief makes the biggest difference.
Yeah, a crew chief can gain you 10 spots, where a pit crew can gain you 2 to 3 or 4.
And here's the other thing I would say, too. Watch Kevin Harvick and Martin Truex Jr. this weekend. Nothing on the line. Both have had success at Dover. And there could be an opportunity for them, depending on the scenarios of the race, to lock out somebody they don't want to compete with. Now, I think right now, the one that best potential to lock out would be a Kyle Larson. He's the one that most of those other guys, if they're up there running for the win, they're going to advance anyway. Larson's the one that I think they want to beat if they're racing with him for the win. They'd rather not see him move on. You guys agree with that?
I disagree with that.
What do you say?
Because if they're racing with Larson for the win, he's going to move on. He's not in a position to move out.
You're saying he's going to be good.
Yeah. So
no, that's a good point.
At this round, it's hard to race somebody to lock them out unless it was a
They're
situation like Harvick last year where he needed to win.
Yeah,
we don't have that situation going into to Dover this year.
Just based on the 4 guys behind the cut line.
Right.
Yeah. No, that's a good point.
Yeah, I agree with that.
So we've been at it now for, 20, 25 minutes. CJ's with us, as he always is. You've been loading up some questions. What's the feedback, and what are people saying out there, CJ?
Well, I was trying to keep an eye on who people were voting for, I guess you could say, because the question that we pushed was who has been the most impressive in the chase, Kevin Harvick or Martin Truex Jr. And I don't know if it's that sentimental value we were talking about a couple of weeks ago, but it seems like a lot of people are voting for the 78, or, he has been pretty good the past couple of weeks. So that's the first thing, is that it seems like a lot of fans
Most
going
people
with
saying
Truex.
the 78, yeah, which is
people going
basically
with
how we
Truex.
sold it, yep.
And then a couple of the questions that I picked, Mickey wanted to know, and I guess he's playing off of yesterday's Race Hub, what would each of you do your first day as NASCAR president?
Yeah, we did have a little presidential type debate to coincide with the actual presidential debate that happened
Larry Mack
last
was
night.
absolutely hilarious.
That was so great.
I got to tell you, I respect Larry so much because we ask a lot of him,
Yeah.
and he always brings his A game. He was very entertaining, and there's clips out there on social media, so if you haven't seen Larry Mack on Monday's Race Hub, you need to pull it up. He was outstanding. What would you guys do? What would be the one thing you would change?
I think the races need to be 25 to 30% shorter.
Ooh, that's a good one.
And are they
and have a tire rule.
And are they full out races? I mean, we're going green to checkers. Or are they going to be segmented or heat races?
Do I have to have one thing, or can
Okay, that's fine. And a tire rule. Explain the tire rule.
So I would like to have limited set of tires. So you have to. Sometimes you're going to have people that pit, and sometimes you're going to have people have to stay out on tires because they don't have enough.
I like that.
So.
For me, I would move more races to Sunday at 1 o'clock. I think that's the time for NASCAR racing, and I think you save those night races for some special occasions, like the Bristol night race, the Coke 600, where you race into night, All-Star race. I think make those night races a bit more exclusive and move more races in the day. I think the racing during the day tends to be better anyways when they're under the sun.
Interesting you say that, because when we had David Reagan on the show Monday as well, and he basically took your two ideas and combined them. And the tire rule is something I'm a big fan of, and I know there'd be pushback from crew chiefs in the garage. At least I think there would be, but I believe that tire rule would go a long way in really helping the competition on track. A lot to cover from a TV perspective, and a lot to comprehend if you're watching at home. Who's got tires left, who doesn't, how are you managing it? But I think when you look just at the on-track product, you're going to have what Larry McReynolds loves to say, we got some comers and goers, and I think that's what you're going to create. Regardless of how you're getting it, you want passing, and I think a tire rule would go a long way in creating that. And I like shortening races, but I think we need to be segmented, almost like a football game. First quarter, second quarter, third quarter, that kind of thing, to where we have natural breaks, good for the fans at the track, good for the fans at home. And I think then at that point, maybe you eliminate some of the guys going a lap down and the free pass and the wave around, so we know if I'm racing against you, it is for position. And the likelihood of guys going a lap down when you have shorter segmented races, I think would increase.
I just don't think we need a 4-hour race. I think it's too long for people's attention span. It's way too long for mine, and I know it's too long for yours.
Yeah, oh, definitely. So I'm good to get through this 30 minutes of HUBcast. Any more questions?
So Larry Mack's closing statement yesterday was he said that he would not allow Cup drivers in the top 30 to drive in the chase races for the Xfinity and the Truck Series.
Yep.
People were wanting to know if you agree with that, and would you take it further and maybe just not let Cup drivers in the last half of the season, something like that.
The rule right now is if you're a Cup driver that made the chase in 2015, you cannot run the season finale at Homestead for either the Truck or Xfinity Series.
Right.
I don't think that's taking it far enough. I think it needs to be, forget about the chase deal. If you're, like Larry said, I agree, top 30 in points, you cannot run Truck or Xfinity chase races. And the only thing that makes me want to take that a step further is that what we saw at Chicago, Kyle Busch won the last race in the regular season in the Truck Series. The guy that finished second was Cameron Haley. If Cameron wins that race, he makes the chase. As it is, he's just running for pride and trying to get a win down the stretch. He cannot win the championship. Some said you shouldn't be able to run the regular season finale either. My only point on that is there's nothing different about Chicago than there is about Bristol or Kentucky or St. Louis or Daytona or Martinsville in the regular season.
Yeah.
Kyle Busch or Brad Keselowski or Joey Logano or Kevin Harvick or any Cup driver could go run, win that race, and a guy finish second that if he wins would have been in the chase that didn't get a win. I lean strongly toward with this format, and it really didn't come to me, and I didn't feel that strongly about it until I saw what happened at Chicago, that we do need to think about with this format excluding Cup drivers.
Altogether.
So I have a little different perspective on it. So I think they should be allowed to run. I think they should start at the rear. I think they should have a half a set less of tires. So if you're given, regular guys are given 4 sets, they get 3.5.
With 2 right sides.
Correct. And then I also think you should have the Truck and Xfinity regulars race against each other. So those, like if you're battling for second place, like it was Hemrick and Haley in the Truck Series.
Even though Haley didn't win, he advances?
So those credits should be the highest finishing guy with points advances. Each race should have like a credit towards the chase. So you're going to have in trucks 16 credits. So the most credits goes on. And bonus points are only given towards the chase for a win though.
16 credits meaning the 16
regular season races. So you're going to have 16 guys that are going to have
a credit.
A credit of some kind.
So you're saying that if you had 5 Cup guys in the race, and they all finished 1 through 5, the guy that finishes 6 is good enough to lock him in the chase.
Let me ask you this question.
Not lock him in. He's going to have one chase credit. So another guy could have 3 or 2 and still not make the chase.
So when it comes to the Xfinity Series, you could finish 5th.
Right,
and get a chase credit.
Right, but that's still not guarantee you to the chase.
It just gives you 1 credit.
Right.
My only thing with that is you should get additional credits if you go out and beat those guys head-to-head and win a race.
Well, you do. You get those bonus points when the chase starts and that chase credit.
But I'm saying you should get more than an actual.
You should get 3 chase
you
credits.
Get 2 credits for winning a race.
So it could be an automatic berth.
No, I don't think that's a bad idea.
I think it's too confusing.
But this way you have those guys like Hemrick and Haley a reason to battle each other. They knew I was there. They knew Kyle Busch was gone.
Yeah, they didn't
so
have a
they
chance.
had no reason to to battle hard against
And
each
Hemrick's
other.
in on points, so finishing third meant nothing to him.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. But if he knew Haley was in front of him and could get in the chase, he's going to run a lot harder.
Good questions. Good answer. You need more.
I have a
things
whole
to
list.
do because
I have a whole
you've
list.
thought way too much about this.
Next week's HUBcast, we can.
All right, just quick show of hands. You like nutty bars?
No.
No on nutty bars. Not enough peanut
Max
butter
is the
for me.
only one.
Going to Dover this
I
weekend.
don't
Who are
actually
your
like
picks?
these. I bought 2 large boxes by accident.
Yeah, nutter butter, nutty bar. Two
Not the
totally
same
different
thing,
things.
apparently.
Who's your pick?
Who's your pick, Dover?
For Dover,
Yeah,
I'm going to go with Matt Kenseth.
Matt Kenseth,
Good pick. Truex.
Martin Truex Jr., Jimmie Johnson.
Going for 11.
Going for 11.
Whew.
He can't even fit them all right there if he wins this weekend. That's the HUBcast for this week. Thanks for watching live on Facebook, on YouTube, and listening at iTunes where you need a subscription so you can do something. That's what they tell me to say. And also Google Play. We'll see you next time. Have a great week. NASCAR Race Hub tonight at 6.